Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today's theme is 3 dogs that saved their owners' lives from potential death or serious harm. I am purposely following last week's episode with a bit of a lighter one, as I know that last one took a bit of a darker turn. However, people who aren't new to this channel will know that of the 3 stories I'm about to share, only 2 of them are true. I personally wrote the 3rd one to try and fool you. By the end of the 3rd story, I will reveal which one was completely made up and which 2 are true. Hopefully you can guess the fake one. If you enjoy this, please subscribe and let's begin. Story number 1. That's not what the fence is for. Jonathan was an older gentleman whose abilities seemed to defy his age. At 75 years old, he was far from needing help from that many people, which was important considering where Jonathan lived. He didn't live on a farm, but he did own a fairly large property. It was surrounded by farmland. The land that he did own, he was responsible for all of the upkeep. He never outsourced any of it. He actually enjoyed doing it himself, remarking that it kept him young. Sadly, Jonathan had been a widower for the past 4 years, and the property itself may have been too much for one person in some people's eyes, but he loved it. His yard was completely fenced in, which gave his best friend plenty of room to roam around. Jonathan owned a Great Pyrenees named Maverick. For those who may be unfamiliar with the breed, a Great Pyrenees are beautiful, pure white dogs that were originally used as flock guardians, and because of this, they can be very territorial. Jonathan himself didn't have any other animals on the property, just Maverick, who was 9 years old, and he was mostly seen just laying around where Jonathan happened to be, occasionally walking the fence line. One day, a very frightening event occurred for Jonathan. He was near his porch, trimming his hedges, when he thought he heard footsteps behind him. He had a very long driveway where you can barely see the road. Jonathan recalls turning his head only to be blindsided by some hard object. Jonathan was sent back and fell to the ground, landing between his house and his pickup truck. He was dazed, but still conscious. He looked over his shoulder and saw a man who looked to be in his early 20s standing there. He had a rock in his hand. Jonathan initially didn't move. He didn't know what this man wanted or why he was here. The man simply said, "I know you have money and I want it." Jonathan wasn't struggling to get by, but he was far from rich either. He claimed to be confused by the line, "I know you have money." The young man said the same thing again, not shouting, trying to be somewhat calm. He didn't appear armed in any other way, but Jonathan didn't know if he was holding a knife or a gun. Jonathan tried to say that he didn't have much, but the young man didn't believe him. He then started to change his demeanor a bit, almost taunting Jonathan for being an easy target. According to Jonathan, the man then said, "This was too easy. An old man out here all by himself? And that fence is useless. It won't keep anyone out." At this point, Jonathan kind of laughed to himself, and this caught the young man's attention. He simply said, "It wasn't to keep anyone out, it was to keep something in." At this point, Jonathan quickly got to his feet, potentially faster than the young man was expecting. He opened his truck and he reached in. The young man immediately grabbed Jonathan and threw him to the ground, but it was too late. Jonathan did what he wanted to do. He was reaching for the garage door button, and immediately the garage door started to open. At this point, you could hear Maverick barking loudly, and as soon as enough space was open, he darted out, moving much faster than Jonathan had seen in years. He lunged at the young man. He barely had any time to react. The nearly 100-pound Maverick knocked the man down and stood over top of him, barking and snarling his teeth, but he did not bite him. Jonathan grabbed his cell phone and called the police. Maverick, who now had the help of Jonathan and a shovel, kept the young man in place till police arrived. He was arrested and sentenced to 15 years for armed robbery and injuring an elderly. Jonathan needed 5 stitches, but otherwise, he was okay. It was discovered that Jonathan had built up an odd reputation in the nearby town for sitting on a lot of cash. He had no clue how that rumor started. Maverick was called a hero, but one detail did strike Jonathan as odd. He wondered why Maverick wasn't barking when the man came onto his property and initially attacked him. He actually had a camera in his garage, so he was able to confirm this. Almost comically, Maverick was sound asleep right up till when Jonathan pushed the garage door button, and the sound of the door opening itself woke him up and he sprung right into action. Regardless, without the quick actions of Jonathan and Maverick, this could have ended much worse. Story number 2. You broke into the wrong house. Kasha and Aaron were a young couple, very much in love, and they were happily expecting their first child. However, one night was a night they would never forget. At some point in the night, the two heard a loud banging on their front door. It was quick, but their Rottweiler, Rocky, began barking like crazy at the noise. The couple actually became more concerned with how loud their dog was being, so they locked him in the bathroom. At this point, Kasha and Aaron went downstairs and looked through the peephole, but they didn't see anything. They then decided to slowly open the door, which is when 4 men burst through and shouted, "Where is the money?" The couple were completely taken off guard. The one man actually dragged Kasha into the other room and held a knife to her throat and told her to shut up. The other 3 men started attacking Aaron. They repeatedly began kicking and punching him. He was greatly outnumbered. There wasn't much he could do. Kasha was begging for them to stop, saying that she was pregnant, but the 4 men didn't seem to care. Kasha and Aaron would have been terrified, as they believed that this could have been the end of their lives. They did not know if these 4 men were here to murder them or to simply rob them. But at this point, it seemed like they were wanting to do worse than just take their money. The 4 men, however, did not expect what would happen next. Rocky, the Rottweiler that had been locked in their bathroom earlier, he was not going to be left out of this altercation. Rocky actually broke through the bathroom door and came barreling downstairs. The 4 attackers were completely caught off guard. They turned to face a very large, snarling Rottweiler. Rocky didn't actually attack any of the men, but they bolted out of that house as quickly as possible. Rocky and Aaron, however, they did not want them to get away that easily. They actually chased them down the street, and they did manage to catch one of the 4 men and held him until police arrived. The man ended up receiving 10 years in jail for armed robbery. Police don't know what motivated this attack, as the other 3 men have yet to be found, and the one man that they did catch, he did not say a thing. Months later, Kasha and Aaron gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. That baby is well protected by Rocky. Story number 3. A rescue dog thanking his owner. In the UK, an elderly woman got the fright of her life one Monday evening. Joyce, a grandmother who lived alone in the greater Manchester area, she wanted a companion, so she wouldn't be alone as much. She decided to get a rescue named Axel. Axel was part German Shepherd and part Akita. I probably don't need to mention the attributes of a German Shepherd, but Akitas are a bit more rare. While German Shepherds are common police dogs in North America, Akitas can be police dogs in Japan. So combining the two makes for one protective animal. Getting Axel as a rescue can be a bit risky, as they can struggle to attach to a new owner. But according to Joyce, this was no problem with Axel. She felt very safe with him around, and in general, he was a loyal pet. They lived together for 4 years until the following incident took place. In April of 2018, when Joyce was outside working on her garden, she was approached by a young man who was asking her for directions. Joyce was a very typical, sweet, loving grandma, and opened up her gate to this young man with the hopes of helping him find out where he needs to go. At this point, however, is when things changed. The man shouted at the 86-year-old woman to give him her jewels, and at this point began hitting her on the head with either a stick or a broom, as Joyce is unsure which. Joyce remarked that people say you don't see stars, but that day, I saw stars. The man then reached for Joyce's pearl necklace, but it was at this point that something caught his attention. The man looked up and saw Axel running around the corner of the house. He wasn't barking, and he was heading right for that man. Before the intruder could even react, Axel leapt on the man and knocked him to the ground. And, unlike the other 2 stories, he latched right onto the man's arm. Joyce recalls hearing them struggle. The man did eventually shake the dog off and bolted out of the garden, but Axel chased him down the street. Joyce said she was worried at this point, believing that she may not ever see her dog again. But soon after, Axel returned to Joyce's side. He still had blood on his nose from the intruder. Police were called, and Joyce was treated for minor injuries. To this day, she says how Axel is her hero and that he saved her life. She has been spoiling him ever since. Police never caught the man responsible, but Joyce feels safe and secure knowing Axel is watching over her. So that concludes our 3rd story. This may be one where you hope all 3 are true, especially after last week's episode, but one is completely made up. Do you think it's story number 1? The Great Pyrenees sound asleep while his owner is attacked, only to be awakened by the sound of the garage door and spring into action? Or 2, a Rottweiler breaking through a bathroom door and scaring off 4 armed men? Maybe 3, a German Shepherd and Akita rescue saving his 86-year-old owner's life. Let's start at the end with story number 3. The Shepherd and Akita cross, Axel, really did save his elderly owner's life. This story is completely true. Joyce Ackerley is forever grateful for her brave dog. Let's move on to story number 2. If you think Rottweilers aren't strong enough to break through a bathroom door, you'd be wrong. This story is completely true as well. That means that the clueless, then suddenly brave Great Pyrenees is the one that I wrote myself. Did you guess right, or did I fool you? Let me know in the comments down below. Please like and subscribe, and have a wonderful day.